Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. Today, we're going to look at another horrific situation with you. North Carolina, the cradle of country, Blues and Cherokee Indians, is currently a relatively conservative and successful state in the northern South Atlantic region. Unlike South Carolina, the state has a relatively low crime rate, and when it does make national headlines, it is usually due to snowstorms, tornadoes, or severe thunderstorms. The shoreline, with tropical storms and flooding, or acres of thick wildlife refuge with the threat of wildfires and landslides, pose considerably greater risks than people. But not usually. On April 10, 2019, 17-year-old Tristan Borlase produced the storm. The adolescent, who comes from a huge religious family, brutally murdered his family members at their house in Deep Gap, North Carolina. On Wednesday evening, a young woman called emergency services to report a big amount of blood in her home as well as 3 missing family members, her parents and younger brother. She said that she was unable to contact them. Police officers responded to the report and quickly traveled to Deep Gap, which is about a mile from the Watauga and Wilkes County boundary. When patrol officers arrived at the residence, they discovered blood on the sidewalk leading to it, on the mat outside the front door, and a blood trail inside that stretched up the stairs. Officers investigating the area outdoors discovered the body of a man hidden in leaves and under a hammock with many stab wounds. A little later, around 10:30 p.m., the family's pickup truck was discovered buried in the woods with the woman's body covered in a blanket and bags of mulch on top. A foolish and hasty domestic tragedy. Tristan's father, Jeff Borlase, was born on April 16, 1975. He is the pastor of the Conservative Pietist Bible Fellowship Church, a Protestant theological movement with Mennonite roots. The boy was raised in an environment that emphasized personal piety and the sense of being continuously watched over by God. His upbringing was based on serious and meticulous Bible study and meetings, as well as moral education. Any form of entertainment was frowned upon, including laughter and colorful attire. Good works, generosity, missionary work, love for the adversary, and abstaining from all forms of violence were regarded as good. Jeffrey learned all of these fundamentals as the son of pastor Harry Borlase. He grew to be a kind, caring, and patient guy. Jeffrey acquired a summer job at the Big Surf Water Park, which is located on the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri. On his first day at work, the young man met a charming, humble girl. Tanya Mae Trandom had the same age, views, and upbringing. Tanya, like Jeffrey, grew up in a family that emphasized Christian values. The patient, humble, and selfless girl considered the religious young man as a perfect future spouse and caring father. She offered Jeffrey a picture of an elderly couple holding hands and added, "That will be us one day." Jeffrey's mother, Kathy Brown, prayed to God to give her son a wife who loved the Lord with all her heart, and she believed her prayers had been answered. The young lovers married, and their family reflected the ideas in which they were raised. Tanya's photo was carefully stored in the family album. The young couple immediately welcomed their first child, a lovely daughter called Taylor. Then 3 more children arrived in succession. The parents named their youngest kid Tristan. Taylor became the most devoted big sister to her siblings. She looked after everyone, assisted everyone, and supported everyone, but the child was particularly close to her younger brother. For Tristan, Taylor became his best and only buddy. Despite their age difference, they went everywhere together. They enjoyed sports, listening to music, and pranking one another. Pietism holds that the purpose of parenting is to establish God's kingdom in the child's heart. As the 4 children got older, Jeffrey and Tanya decided to fulfill their Christian duty by adopting 4 more boys from the orphanage. Others described the family as open, caring, and pleasant, and it grew to 8 children: Taylor, the twins Kaya and Alexis, Misery, Al, Stephen, Maloku, and Tristan. According to the family's religious views, children were not allowed to use cell phones or social media until a particular age, and austerity in needs and desires was encouraged. Boys were not allowed to date ladies until they graduated from high school or until they turned 18. Bible study and other religious practices were mandatory. Otherwise, youngsters grew up as any other boy or girl. Parents make no discrimination between native and adoptive children. They all received equal attention, care, and compassion. Care and compassion. The devoted mother maintained a peaceful environment while keeping a close eye on internal order. Brothers and sisters' relationships were characterized by frequent prayer and good deeds. The parents thought that virtue should be cultivated via their own deeds. Therefore, they taught their children mercy by example. When a hurricane struck Haiti, Tanya sold her expensive wedding band and donated the earnings to an organization that is building houses for the victims. In exchange, she got herself a modest and expensive ring. Taylor graduated from high school in 2015 and relocated to Boone to study at Appalachian State University. Tristan was greatly affected by this event. He'd lost his sole friend and was alone. Taylor returned home at the earliest opportunity, but she now had her own free life, leaving Tristan with the same old rules and rituals. He had rebelled against the limits imposed on him from boyhood and clashed with his parents' religious beliefs. He was irritated by the lack of a cell phone and the inability to contact with his peers via social media, especially because such communication has become an essential part of the lives of modern teenagers. Taylor's disagreements with his parents only increased after he left. In December 2017, the family's lives changed for the better. Jeffrey, his wife, and their children relocated to a new house on a large lot near Deep Gap, Watauga County, North Carolina. The house was on a dirt road heading into a wooded area and was much larger than the previous one. Furthermore, the new home was only a short distance from Robin's, Tanya's, and the children's grandmother's home. Because of their close proximity, they could call on her at any time for assistance in caring for the smallest children. It was unclear whether the transfer had been as enjoyable for Tristan, given he had to change schools and surroundings. In Watauga, he attended the local high school and began track and field. Other kids worked as counselors at summer camps. At first look, it could appear that there was never any issue or trouble in the Borlas household, but this was not true. Tristan's actions become increasingly disturbing. In 2018, the school insisted on multiple meetings with a psychologist to address rage issues and a lack of impulsive behavior control. Despite his exceptional abilities, the young man began to struggle with various academic topics in 2019, and these difficulties only grew with each passing day. Before the move, he was a conscientious student who had always participated in school life. However, he became an indifferent, distant youth who lost interest in his academics. Tristan began to be late for classes and showed little willingness to study at all. It came to the point where he'd put on his headphones throughout class and sit with an absent expression. Some teachers tried to help Tristan, and he even established contact, but everything ended with the same coldness and lack of interest. Furthermore, the young man did not always behave well at home. By this point, he got everything he had been arguing with his parents for, including his own cell phone and access to social networks. Tristan spent a lot of time using the internet. He identified as a musician on his Instagram account. Taylor was always interested in her siblings' life and saw that Tristan quarreled with his parents more frequently and disagreed with his mother on religious issues. She learned about his other troubles at school as well. The sister attempted to communicate with her brother, but the connection that had existed previously had disappeared. After a while, the young man became friends with Evelyn Faith Jackson, a member of the religious community. They began meeting, disregarding the taboo on personal relationships. They sometimes smoked banned herbs, and Tristan grumbled about his mother, who discussed his behavior with him at night, leaving him exhausted and unable to concentrate at school. The young man was concerned that he lacked several qualities that would cause him to fall short of his mother's expectations and prevent her from being proud of him. He's been told that he can be himself around his father, but not with his mother. On April 10, 2019, many secrets from Tristan's life were revealed. Surveillance cameras were installed in the barn where the goats were housed, and Tristan's old cell phone, which he occasionally used surreptitiously from his parents, served as the access point. Tanya picked up the phone that day for whatever reason and received text messages in which her son was having sexual talks with ladies and discussed illicit narcotics. Tristan was in school at the time and noticed his phone start blinking with new messages. His shocked parents wrote to him in a family chat about the information discovered on Tristan's old phone. That same day, Tristan's English teacher, Cherokee, called his mother to complain about his grades and behavior. She would later testify at trial that Tanya Borlaz contacted her back and said she and her husband would be at school soon and would pick Tristan up early to talk about his grades. Cherokee repeated her parents' sentiments to Tristan, who was shocked by the news. The couple left their youngest child with his grandma and went to middle school to deal with the situation. The ride home was silent. Tristan will testify at trial that the mother appeared uptight and grimaced while leafing through his phone. After an hour and a half of conversation at home, Tanya contacted her mother, informing her that Tristan was not angry, that they had taken away his phone and car keys until his grades and behavior improved, and that she would be picking up the younger child shortly. The message was sent at 4 p.m., and the conversation appears to have continued since then. According to Tristan's remarks, he and his mother discussed the importance of doing well in school, hygiene in relationships with girls, the hazards of illegal substances, and the fact that she did not want him to study any religion other than Christianity. He was forced to listen, and he discovered how much of himself needed to be fixed. They also created a list of virtues he should have to become a better person, such as compassion and honesty, which the police eventually discovered. Tristan claimed that his mother approached him from behind, placed her arm over his neck, and applied pressure, forcing him to instinctively spring up, spin around, and accidentally elbow her. According to him, his mother had never done anything like that, which is why he reacted in that manner. The punch surprised his mother, who grabbed what he thought were scissors from a shelf and walked toward her kid. In disbelief at what was happening, he stabbed her, believing he was defending himself, and fled to his father for assistance. Later, a forensic test will reveal no evidence that Tristan's mother strangled him, and during the trial, the prosecution will show the jury images of Tanya Borlas's neck taken by the medical examiner, which show a broken neck bone. The psychologist, on the other hand, will demonstrate during the trial that Tristan Borlas was mentally sound at the time of the crime, but suffered from a profoundly degraded cognitive state characterized by depersonalization, derealization, and the perception of events as unrealization, and the perception of events as unreal. However, the judge and jury rejected the psychologist's assessment, determining Tristan to be a skilled manipulator and a socially dangerous individual. According to Tristan, he had no idea what was going on, why his father was fleeing from him, and why he stabbed him when he caught up, despite his pleas for aid. He recalls his father picking up a rock and saying, "Tristan, don't." However, he was certain that his father would rather kill him than injure him. Neighbors later reported hearing loud screams on the Borlas property around 5:30 p.m. that Wednesday. After it was over, Tristan returned to the house and vomited, which the psychologist interpreted as severe stress rather than cold-blooded, deliberate murder. However, the jury disagreed with the psychologist's assessment. After all, they were seeing the forensic medical examiner's reports at trial. The autopsy report for Jeffrey Borlas revealed multiple knife wounds to the left chest and back / wounds to the arms and wrists, and abrasions to the skull and forehead. Tanya Borlas' post-mortem report revealed that she had many stab wounds, including those to her left chest, back, and arm, as well as injuries that may have occurred when her neck was squeezed. The data implied that the parents were defending themselves rather than assaulting. Furthermore, Tristan had the option of fleeing his mother if he felt endangered, and even if the mother was the victim of a momentary loss in judgment and a misinterpretation of self-defense, the father's murder and following actions appeared different. Tristan returned to the house, took his mother's body, and hid it in the vehicle with a tarp. He then spent approximately an hour cleaning up the crime scene, including washing the porch outside the house with a hose. Around 8:30 p.m., Tristan arrived at his grandmother's house to pick up his younger brother. Robin thought this was quite unusual. Tristan stated that his parents wanted to go to the grocery and apologized for not having time to stop by and pick up his sibling. About 20 minutes later, Robin received a call from her other grandson, who complained that his parents were not answering the phone, and had not arrived to pick him up from his part-time work as they usually did. Grandma called Alexis and asked her to go get her brother. They planned to meet at Jeffrey and Tanya's house and figure out what had transpired. As they approached the house, Robin observed blood on the porch, but she wasn't too concerned because the couple raised animals. She rushed inside the house to obtain a flashlight to check on the animals and discovered that there was blood everywhere. Alexis went into the house at the time and reported seeing a body beneath the hammock near the animal barn, and she believed she saw Tristan in a getaway car with blood on his face. Alexis contacted emergency services. The operator instructed her and all family members to lock themselves in the car and wait for the cops to arrive. The police arrived 10 minutes later. After several hours of waiting outside and speaking with officers, they were all led to the station, where they learned that Jeffrey and Tanya Borlas had been found dead. While investigating the crime scene, officers discovered a computer interface in the residence that connected the video surveillance system to the monitors. Detectives observed a screen on the monitor with a grid of cameras displaying live video. They quickly asked for a warrant to collect the credentials from System Servicing Company. Meanwhile, Tristan contacted his girlfriend Evelyn and went to her house. She noticed that he was concerned about something, and he had a few scratches on his forehead and arms. Tristan told her, however, that he had just had a dispute with his parents and had gotten the scratches while playing with his dog. Evelyn characterized Tristan's injuries as 3 forehead scratches, a hand wound, a finger cut, and a bruised fingernail. Tristan posted a photo of his injuries on Snapchat shortly after the crime, explaining that he was injured by his father's dog. According to his partner, the snapshot matched the injuries she noticed on him that evening. Tristan spent the night. The next morning, they went to Walmart and McDonald's, intending to go to school, but then changed their minds. Evelyn was certain that Tristan only wanted to get away from his parents for a bit, so she offered to stay with one of her aunts. He agreed, and they went to another state. On April 11th, the sheriff's office staff received the username and password for the Borley's home video surveillance system. They examined the video footage and discovered the circumstances surrounding the crime. Police acquired a warrant for Tristan's arrest and passed over information about the vehicle he allegedly drove away to the National Crime Information Center. A search for the car ensued, and a chase began. Investigator Matthew learned that Tristan had been seen in Tennessee and initiated the paperwork necessary to extradite the accused culprit. He requested Robin, Tristan's grandmother, to accompany him to the apprehension so that he could speak to the young guy in her presence, despite his youth. As they drove with Evelyn, Tristan observed blue lights following them. He sped up and informed his companion that his parents had reported the car as stolen. In order to locate him, he sped down the highway, attempting to get away, but eventually succumbed to his pursuers and pulled over. The Ford was encircled by police vehicles. Evelyn was utterly perplexed when she watched her lover being detained and driven away in a squad car. The officers saw that Tristan did not appear upset or agitated. His April 11th, 2019 interview with investigator Matthew was videotaped and audio recorded. The young man responded to all queries, confessed to the crime, and described all of his actions. At times, he cried. Tristan Borlas, who was a month away from turning 18, was brought into custody without bail. A short later, the sheriff's office got a warrant to investigate Tristan's Snapchat account, and as well as 5 of his cell phones, all of which may have included evidence relevant to the crime. A search warrant was also issued for the Orchard Road residence, where detectives discovered another phone in the master bedroom, a keyboard and pen from a safe, paper cups, a hammer, a straw, knives, a red-stained swab, eyeglasses, a kitchen towel, a hammock, a digital video recorder, a rug, and digital video recorder, a rug, miscellaneous papers, South Dakota cards, and boots. According to court filings, a search order was issued for the Ford F-150 vehicle, and a red-stained swab, laptop computer, charger, and steering wheel cover were confiscated. A warrant was also issued to search Tristan's girlfriend's home in Boone, where the young man had spent the night. According to court filings, a pillowcase, a zippered sweatshirt, and a notebook were seized from the property. The findings of the investigations and searches assisted detectives in reconstructing the timeline of events, down to the smallest details. The version of self-defense was deemed unworkable. The couple's funeral services were performed at Bible Fellowship Church on April 17, 2019. Pastors William Krantz and Brad Gray officiated during the event. The children, who lost their parents at such a young age, found the strength to compose a poignant obituary. Our parents never had the opportunity to live for themselves because they always lived for us. Jeff and Tanya have always brought their parent great delight and pride. Our parents made the world a better place, and we aspire to carry on that tradition by passionately loving others and following Jesus. Taylor went to see her brother in prison for the first time after the burial, and she was disappointed by his behavior. Not only was Tristan unrepentant, but he attempted to blame the family for what had occurred. Her sister had the impression that he was certain that he would regain his freedom at some point. Taylor was disgusted, turned around, and departed. Her second visit was on May 11, Tristan's birthday. This time, she came with Grandma Robin, but the meeting was similar to the last one. Her brother was praising the prison party they had planned for him to celebrate his birthday. Taylor felt the behavior disgusting, particularly given their parents' terrible deaths. Following this visit, the family decided to break all contact with Tristan. The trial started on February 16, 2022. At the trial, Tristan expressed contrition for what had occurred. He agreed with all his family had said about him and supported the decision to impose a permanent contact ban to ensure the family's safety. On March 3rd, Tristan Borlas was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for each count of first-degree murder. Judge Horn highlighted that Tristan Borlas's mental health was a mitigating factor, since the psychologist's assessment suggested that he was still suffering from anxiety and despair, as well as symptoms consistent with post-traumatic stress disorder. However, Judge Horn observed that the psychologist found no indication of psychotic disorders, even though the anxiety and despair may have been exacerbated by the continuous use of illegal narcotics. The most remarkable aspect of this case is that neither Tristan's family, his lawyer, or he himself made any statements about the motivations for the murder. On the one hand, a religious family and a socially dangerous man using illegal drugs who did not fully understand the reasons for what happened or competently played the misunderstanding, and on the other, a self-hating young man with low self-esteem, prone to depression, actively exhibiting symptoms of anxiety and not receiving the necessary qualified medical care. During the court session, it was mentioned that his mother helped him cope with panic attacks because she was prone to them as well. One of the main provisions of pietistic pedagogy is that children burdened with original sin are immoral from birth, and thus education in school should correct them, preparing them for correct pietistic behavior in life through strict discipline and suppression of children's self-consciousness. Strict love is meant to be good. A youngster who may have inherited overreactivity of the nervous system grew up with severe boundaries, constantly feeling that he was not a good enough holy person. Some people require more affection than others due to their nature. According to his older sister, the tiny child was quite jealous of the new siblings, whose appearance drew the parents' attention. Rebellion was followed by gloomy moods and feelings of worthlessness, as well as illicit cannabis, panic attacks, and depersonalization, derealization states. He did not accept his parents' religious belief, who his mother wanted him to be, and being himself meant he needed to be corrected. Was the list of needed adjustments that the two of them created with his mother, rather than finding contacts for a decent therapist, the final straw? Was there any way to prevent such a needless and brutal catastrophe in a very loved family?